All right, so this is a meeting of the Judiciary Committee of the Wilmette Village Board. And Mr. Stein, if you would please call the roll.
Yes, Trustee Vero?
Here.
Trustee Sullivan?
Here.
Chair Jaya?
Here. This meeting is being conducted remotely via Microsoft Teams software. The state of Illinois is still under portions of a stay-at-home order, which was issued by Governor Pritzker as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as a result, all in-person meetings at the village have been canceled. The state has amended the Open Meetings Act to permit electronic meetings, and we are conducting our business in compliance with state law and the Open Meetings Act. This meeting is being broadcast live on the village's YouTube page. A recording of the meeting will be archived on the village's website. A remote meeting requires a different mechanism for public participation, so to ensure that all of our residents and other interested parties have the opportunity to participate in this meeting, we have solicited public comment via email. So if you sent an email to publiccomment@wilmette.com at least 2 hours prior to the start of this meeting, our staff has shared your comment with members of the committee. If your comment was received within 2 hours of the meeting, it will be included in the meeting minutes. Members of the public watching via YouTube Live wishing to comment during the designated public comment period may submit comments through the chat feature on YouTube Live, and a member of the village staff will read your comment. For those who have connected via Microsoft Teams or telephone and wish to address the committee, I will ask people to speak up when it is time for public comment. Due to logistics, I will first ask someone to identify themselves if they would like to address the committee, and we will then assemble the list and call on the individual person by person. For people who choose to speak, I would like to remind you that you have 3 minutes. Comments from the public, no matter how they were received, will be recorded into the meeting minutes as we typically do. So with our meeting introductions complete, I will move to item 2 and seek a motion from the committee to approve the minutes of the Judiciary Committee meeting of December 13th, 2019.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, assuming that there is none or seeing none, Mr. Stein, would you call for a roll on approval of the minutes?
Trustee Vero?
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan?
Aye.
Chair Jaya?
Aye. So the minutes are approved, and we will move to agenda item 3. At this time, I will ask for a motion to recommend to the village board approval of an ordinance increasing M1 liquor licenses for pit and tap. May I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
All right, so now that we have a motion, we can go to discussion. And Mr. Stein, perhaps you begin by giving us a brief background about this application and the role of the Judiciary Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Of course. So first, the role of the Judiciary Committee is probably the most important thing that we need to discuss, as this is a new committee or new members of the committee. This is a recommendation only, and the recommendation is essentially to increase the number of liquor licenses in this classification. And this is a very typical type of application that this committee sees and has seen since I've been there. Essentially, the control over whether or not a liquor license is issued is left with the Liquor Control Commissioner, who is the village president. However, the village board controls exactly how many liquor licenses are in each category. So as of right now, I believe we have 2 M1 liquor licenses that are filled. We want to increase that to 3, and that's what the motion is for, and specifically on the application for pit and tap. I'm going to let Mr. Clark, who is the applicant, talk about his business application and his plan, but so far from village staff's point of view, everything is complete as far as the application is concerned. The restaurant's not complete, but I'm sure he'll talk about that. But our application is complete, and as well as any kind of background checks and everything have come back that Mr. Clark is able to hold a liquor license. Often we don't have that information for this committee, but because this application was submitted a while ago, we were able to get that done. I know Mr. Clark wants to try and open as soon as possible, and hopefully we'll be able to sometime before June is what we talked about at hopefully the next village board meeting. So essentially, the role of the committee is to listen, ask questions about the application, as well as the business plan if there are any. But ultimately, the recommendation is a recommendation only, is to increase the number of liquor licenses in this category. That will then go to the village board through an ordinance, most likely on consent, depending on the nature of this conversation. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair and open it up for any comments from the applicants or any trustees at this point.
Sorry, just trying to unmute myself. Okay, thank you for that. Can I ask for one quick question for clarification, Mr. Stein? Does the pre-existing liquor license at the previous location, has that been voided and this is a brand new application?
Yeah, so that was at Nick's. Nick's Tavern had a liquor license at the location. That has been surrendered when they closed the business, and we passed an ordinance probably in March, I think, maybe February, March, decreasing the number of M1s back down to 2. So there is no open license.
Okay, so it's not really a transfer as much as it's a new application.
No, but we don't allow, the liquor licenses are not allowed to be transferred from one entity to another. They have to be a new application.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Unless any other trustee has a question, we go to ask the applicant for the comments that they would like to make.
Actually, Mr. Stein, just so I understand exactly what this license, and I was following on your memo. This is all liquor. It's not just beer and wine. It's
so that's right. That's correct. So this is essentially our largest liquor license, I guess, for lack of better words. This is the one that it can be a bar. There doesn't have to necessarily be food sold to go to serve the liquor, but it has to be offered. What the beer and wine is in this particular case is, and we're going to discuss this later, is a packaged good. M1 license is allowed to sell a 12-pack of beer, 2 bottles of wine, or a 6-pack of beer and a 1 bottle of wine for someone to take off premises with a carry-out type of service. But other than that, liquor is not allowed to be taken off-site for consumption. Only beer and wine, but on-site is everything, full-blown and bar.
Got it. So, and maybe I missed what you just because in the opening paragraph it says to sell alcohol liquor for on-premise consumption for its restaurant patrons, as well as allowing the sale of only alcohol liquor to patrons in a designated bar area where meals may but not required to be served. But then in F6 it says they can purchase it and leave.
Right. So that's exactly right. So the on-site consumption could be at a bar or at the table. For off-site consumption, it's a packaged good. Right. So if you want a glass of wine, you pour it at the table, you drink it there. That's perfectly allowed at the table and the bar. But if you want to buy a bottle, if you want to take barbecue to go, and you want a bottle of wine, you don't feel like going down the street to get a bottle of wine, you can buy a bottle of wine in its original package and sealed and take that home with you. And that's what beer and wine limitation is.
Okay, that's where I was. Got it. Okay.
That's where off-site consumption versus
right.
on-site.
Okay. Trustee Sullivan, any other questions for trustees before we proceed?
I actually have a question that doesn't, for the applicant, that doesn't directly relate to the license. I'll be glad to wait until the presentation.
That sounds great. Let's go ahead and hear from our applicant, and then we can see if he answers any of your questions or if we have some at the end of that presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I think so.
You can. Okay, thanks. So thanks for meeting with me today. Again, my name is Michael Clark, and I am the owner of Pit and Tap at 1168 Wilmette Avenue at the former Nick's location. I've been working on bringing a barbecue restaurant to our community for a couple of years, and I am thrilled to be where I can see the finish line here. Pit and Tap will be a eating and drinking place. Barbecue will be the menu, Texas style. Hopefully you guys all like it. It's we'll have brisket and ribs and pulled pork. As far as the other side, that's why it's called Pit, from that part. The tap part is that we will be offering 20, hopefully, we will be offering 20 draft beers on tap. We're not going to be a bottle or can restaurant. Everything will be on tap as far as our beers go. We will be carrying a small but precise wine list by both glass and bottle, and barbecue-centric specialty drinks, 4 or 5 on the menu that really kind of add to the smokiness of our food. Besides that, we will have a full bar, and we are looking forward to that part. I've extended the bar here from what the original seating was at Nick's. Nick's seated had seats at the bar for 8, where we are at 14. We have counter seating that is along. I'm not sure if you guys have been through the village recently. I have a big blue tarp. It's gorgeous. Everyone loves it. I may keep it up forever, actually. But right in that area, we have an open counter space. So people have that kind of, boy, I'll say Wrigleyville and Bourbon Street, but those have their own connotations, but kind of that open feel where you can sit and eat and enjoy a draft beer right on the counter overlooking our downtown village and the new streetscape, which is looking awesome as well. So a very open air restaurant with having opened up the whole facade. We've been granted through the village outdoor seating, and the outdoor seating extends, from what I'm at least being told, I'm have a large area, not just in front of my particular spot, where I'm able to extend a little bit in front towards the corner. There. I anticipate having seating for 32 outside, all 4 tops, with umbrellas, and so our total seating inside and out, I have 81 inside plus the 32. Get a calculator real quick, but we kind of get an idea there that we're about 120, give or take. Okay, if someone's scooting up, on to cap some seats. So we're about 120 if there's butts in every chair that I have. The restaurant is owned by myself. I am the majority partner. I do have a small group of investors. No one having more than 1.4% of the business, and that has helped me just simply get through these crazy times, actually. So as far as our opening is imminent. We are at the mercy of the supply chain, like everyone seems to be. If my cabinets showed up in a week or 2 weeks, even though it may not feel like when you go by that we're ready, I have windows being installed 1 week from today. Flooring is going in the following day. My bar top goes in Monday. And I will literally just be at granite's here. So I am literally just waiting for the lumber of cabinets to get out of wherever they need to go, chop some trees, and get them to me, and so we can be at that point. But it all comes together really quickly at the end. That's what kind of happens at a restaurant. It's everyone's bumping into each other. We're starting to paint, so we're really working and quickly towards an opening. We want to take advantage of the summer, and so that's our goal. That's about it. Personally, I'm a Wilmette resident. I live on Wilmette Avenue, and now I have a business on Wilmette Avenue. And I was in the restaurant industry for a long time in Los Angeles, and opened a lot of restaurants with Wolfgang Puck and a lot of names that, why drop names? You'll just be too impressed by me. So I will, so I will spare you that, and just tell you that I've opened up a lot of restaurants, and restaurant business is tough, and I want it out. And was just fatigued, and we moved to Chicago, and I did something else, and then we moved to Wilmette, which I was originally a Palatine resident. I didn't even know Wilmette existed. I had never heard of it, and we found it, and I fell in love with it, and being a part of the community by being a part of at school and being on the boards for hockey and baseball and doing all those types of being a part of the community, actually kind of just got that itch of what else I wanted to do, which was bringing a restaurant to this community. And to me, there's nothing like having a restaurant that feels like a part of Wilmette. It's and that's my goal, is to create a true community restaurant. All of my investors are Wilmette residents. I have tried to use only exclusively Wilmette vendors, whether it be for website or merchandise. My attorneys, etc., accountants are also from Wilmette. So it's really been a goal for me. I think where I'll end up having to, unfortunately, stop that is in this staffing situation, because staffing is ridiculous. Everyone's hearing about it, but we're pretty much going to have to go outside of our village to be able to staff all you need to staff. But that's it. So Pit and Tap, a real Wilmette community restaurant. We're excited to bring it to everyone. We hope to be a place that everyone feels is, their place. It's for family. It's the hours, which are probably going to be a question there. I anticipate the restaurant being the restaurant until 8 o'clock, and then if you've ever been around the village about 8 o'clock, no one's eating anymore. It's school and etc. and get home and get ready, and then but we'll have extended hours. Our bar hours, in particular, on Fridays and Saturdays, we will take advantage of the M1 license and be open till midnight. I know we shorter on the other days, certainly, but it also depend on what's happening in the bar at that time. There'll be a certain amount of flow. There's people after a softball game. We'll extend all the way until we can no longer extend according to the license. And as far as to-go and package situations, it's become a big thing during these COVID, this last year of COVID. Taking carryout has become a massive part, and something certainly that we've had to put a lot of thought into here, versus just not just the restaurant, but how things leave here. And we are anxious to be able to have wine and the like go. I do have a question about the package licensing, because one of the things that, and I'll abide by whatever, but one of the things that I'm seeing around, not just here, certainly no names mentioned, but cocktails to go has become a big situation in the restaurant industry, where you have a sealed container specifically for that, almost like how growlers you see at a brewery, something of that nature. So I want some clarification on the package part of that, and so I can abide by that accordingly and know how far I can extend, because cocktails to go seems like a good deal.
If you want to wait for the next application, or even if you want to wait to the amendments to Chapter 10, those are the items we're going to be discussing. But in short, and we're looking, there's a recommendation to expand what we have on the books. So it's a little complicated, and I'm going to go over this a lot more in detail, but we have an emergency declaration that essentially is temporary. Obviously, it's only during the pandemic, that allows cocktails to go and allows the delivery of alcohol, basically without limit. And the state has their declaration as well, and their amendments to the state liquor code. Once the emergency declaration is over, and I can't tell you when, but it's imminent, the law needs to be changed. There's currently a Senate bill that allows cocktails to go to extend beyond June 2nd of this year, which is the current deadline. That's in committee with the state. I can't tell you how fast it's very quickly. But one of the recommendations that we have today, one of the things that we're discussing is amending our village code to allow for a larger type of delivery of cocktails as well as a delivery of alcohol, of packaged goods without limitations. But as it stands right now, if the emergency declaration goes away, your limitation is 2 bottles of wine or a 12-pack of beer. That's, and there's other limitations, the price setting can't be cheaper than what you would pay for in the restaurant. But that's what it is right now. That very well could be changing in the next 4 weeks. So
Sure. All right. Well, I'll flow with whatever.
yeah, and don't worry, we will absolutely let all the liquor licensees know.
All right.
Mr. Smith and Mr. Clark, I mean, you addressed the hours. That was my question. Are these hours consistent with what Nick's are in Valley Lodge?
Well,
I
can't
frequent
speak
that at 1 a.m., so I don't know.
Yeah, they're consistent with Valley Lodge. Nick's had their own way of doing business, and that's not the model that I'm going with, but it's consistent with Valley Lodge.
And those hours are consistent with our.
Trustee Barrow, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Well, I'll first make an observation that I think this application is entirely in order, and I think this is going to be a great addition to Wilmette. I'm really looking forward to opening. But I do have a question for Mr. Clark, and it's to ask him to address what kind of smoker you're using. Wood, gas, how will this work?
Oh, okay. I'm used to answering this one. I have a all wood burning smoker. It was fabricated in Mesquite, Texas, and brought here on a flatbed. And then with a crane, we had to move it. It's over 3 tons. It is in the center of the restaurant. It is absolutely the showpiece of the entire pit and tap, and with great expense, shoring up the floor as an example, so it could hold this. We have jumped through those hoops with the village and the fire inspector and department to be able to make sure that we've installed a safe all wood burning smoker called an oiler. If you're like a smoker geek like me, I'll tell you it's called an oiler, OYLER, and that's who originally manufactured it. And the name of mine is Big Earl. We called it Big Earl because the greatest oiler, Houston Oiler, was Earl Campbell, in my opinion. So it's named after Earl Campbell, and that's what we've got there. It's Big Earl. That's
terrific. So will you have employees there late in all night, essentially?
Yes. So good question. Our first shift starts at 3 a.m. And that is the prep guys, and literally the guys who come in and they pull all the meat off and wrap in butcher paper, tip it, get the grease off of it, certainly, and then and put it back in. And those are the long briskets and pulled pork. At that point, earlier, a couple hours later, we'll start prepping for lunch ribs. So in theory, though, there could be a time where there's only an hour, like on a Friday night, where by the time the bartenders are done with their side work and the 3 a.m. people are coming, that there's maybe an hour where there's no one here. Yeah.
Very good. Last question. What's your wood of choice?
Okay. Post oak. Post oak. Yeah.
Very good.
Post oak for the longer cook starting at 6 p.m. So if you're here at 6 for dinner, you'll see the whole thing being loaded up for the next day. We'll be using post oak, and then we will feed cherry into it for the ribs in the early mornings and then in the afternoon for dinner.
Very good.
Okay.
Trustee Barrow is looking for some free tips so he can smoke something this weekend.
We'll have plenty of work tips too.
It's so much work. The tip is to get in your car and go over there and eat it right there.
Right. Thanks.
I would echo Trustee Barrow's comments. I think the application looks in great order, and we're excited. And I actually appreciate that you've had the blue tarps over your windows, so we don't have to pay somebody to clean the windows due to the construction.
Sure.
But I think it's perfect timing. So.
Yeah, great.
I had one additional question. I thought I read in actually the meeting minutes, the ones we just approved, that there was, with a previous applicant, there needed to be a separate application for outdoor service. Is that because it's that was Sophia Steakhouse? I think they said they had to have is this also a separate application for outdoor service?
Yes, that's handled administratively, so there's an outdoor seating license, which you'll actually see some amendments on the next village board agenda, again, because of the emergency declaration. But yeah, we have our own separate license that's handled administratively. The village code allows for outdoor seating in certain for restaurants downtown and other areas in the village. It would very strict limitations. There's very strict limitations on it, but as you see for Valley Lodge and Pescadero, it'll be very similar for Mr. Clark. So he's already applied for that. And, I don't know if it's been granted yet, but it will. So we'll be looking for it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for the presentation and all the information. I have a number of big meat eaters in my family, so we will be lining up I'm sure, for that. But I don't have any other questions. Do either of the trustees have any additional questions?
None here.
Do we have any public comment from YouTube?
We do not, Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone else online who would like to make a comment at this time? We give it a minute just to see if anyone raises a hand. I don't see anyone. Mr. Stein, do you?
No.
Okay. So then I think we are ready to take a roll call vote on the motion. And just as a reminder, this is just a recommendation to the full village board. This does not actually pass anything, but this is a recommendation from the committee to the board. And I assume, Mr. Stein, it would be on the next or the meeting after that?
So this particular application will be on the next meeting, which will be May 25th, I believe. And I believe there's going to be a request to waive the rules, so it can be finalized that day. I will work with Mr. Dunn, who is Mr. Clark's attorney, and let him know the whole process. But I think with the positive recommendation, usually it goes on consent.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think we're ready for a roll call vote.
Okay. Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Chair Giant.
Aye.
Motion passes. So we will get, like I said, I'll get in contact with Mr. Dunn and let him know the next one.
I appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you so much. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Great, thanks so much.
Okay. So I can bail?
You can, unless you'd like to stay for the rest of the session. You're of course welcome.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Okay, you're probably busy. Okay, so we are going to move on to agenda item 4. And in order to begin this item, I'm going to ask for a motion to recommend to the village board approval of an ordinance amending the village code to create a new classification of liquor license for Luigi's Dress Shop. So may I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? Okay. So the motion's on the table. Mr. Stein, would you give us again a brief background about this application and our role in this?
Yes, absolutely. So this is a little different and I would say unique to not only the village, but possibly unique to the state in what the business application is here. This is obviously now related to the delivery of cocktails, which is new to the law, as I stated earlier. In fact, it's only temporary currently to June 2nd, but there is a bill before the state Senate. That was in the state Senate, passed the state Senate, is now before the House. To extend that to January 1, 2024. I've talked to the State Liquor Commission as well, and they've confirmed that bill would need to be passed by the state to allow this. But in the State Commission's attorney's opinion, he thought that this was going to be passed relatively easy since it was already 56-0 in the state or in the Senate. He thinks the House will follow suit, and the governor will sign almost immediately. The application before you it's a little different than just adding one liquor license. We have to create a new liquor license. For the type of work or the type of business that is being proposed, there is no liquor license category that fits this. And this happens from time to time. The last one that I can think of was a brew pub, where we did one for Depot, as well as Backyard Barbecue. They wanted to brew their own beer. They needed a special license. That was the last new liquor license created. And before that was the Wilmette Theater. So that tells you the time in which we get these applications. But it is part of the Judiciary's committee to vet this, come up with some of the, if it's a yes, if the idea is something that we want to license, then come up with any kind of conditions or regulations or restrictions on the said license. The applicants themselves have also proposed some of their own limitations, which do help with us to guide us, but I think there's some of that discussion needs to be handled between the committee and the applicants to figure out what the comfort level is. The motion, if approved, I will draft an ordinance that will be submitted back to the full village board, along with creating that category and including one open license for that category. This will not be waived. This is something that will probably need to be discussed at the village board level based upon the recommendation, whether that's a recommendation of approval or denial. But essentially, it's a unique business prospect and it's a unique building as well. It's a unique location that is going through zoning. I believe that the zoning public hearing it was continued to next week, if I'm correct on that, because there was not enough members at the last hearing. So that's still a process too. That's the land use process. We're concerned with the liquor license category. So with that, I would turn it back to the chair to go to the next step of the application.
Great, thank you. Does either trustee have any questions for Mr. Stein before we hear from the applicant? Okay. All right, so I think we have our applicants in the meeting. Thank you for joining us today. You could tell us a little bit about this business and your application?
Sure. Well, I've been looking at this space for a long time. I own the Alchemy Coffee House, which is a few doors down. And this building, which was built in 1922 or 24, is a European style structure. It's really beautiful. And down below are these street level stores that step down. And I've been having this idea that, it would be a speakeasy, but totally run on the up and up. And I wanted to call it Luigi's Dress Shop because I wanted it to look like it was a haute couture dressmaker in there, but inside was actually high-end cocktail making for delivery. So before the pandemic, I always wanted it to be kind of this nice little cocktail bar. It would only fit like 10 people, but yeah, that's what we want to do. And I wanted to have a partner, and Mary Rose, said that she would like to do it, and here we are. Hold on, one more thing. It would be the most beautiful thing on that street. It's kind of a dead street. We were going to have canopies. There's all these windows that wrap around this store, and we would have mannequins. And Mary Rose is very stylish with mannequins. She owns a store called Exhibit, and we were going to have this image that a guy makes these gowns for rich people, but inside it's a factory. So haute couture dresses, appointment only. You peek in the window, you might see a sewing machine, spools. Yeah.
I actually appreciate you just told me that, because I had to read this twice going, what am I reading?
So it's interesting because Prohibition was actually about 100 years ago from about this time. And so obviously we want to do a legit speakeasy, but we wanted it to really beautify the neighborhood and look like a beautiful storefront. But then on the inside, Blair, the alchemist, will be making very high-end cocktails for delivery. And then, as you can see on our application, we'd also want to do some limited in-shop tastings. But the space is so small, you truly couldn't have more than 8 to 10 people in there, just by zoning and fire codes and all that stuff. So it's kind of a really small operation, but just very community oriented. We both, as Blair said, I own Exhibit right here in downtown Wilmette. I also have a law office where we are right now. We just want to add something special to the community. And like Blair said, during the pandemic, this whole new focus on home entertaining has really sprung up. People are sprucing up their backyards and whatnot. And Blair not only is an alchemist of coffee, but he's also super into high-end liquors and liqueurs, but also the additions that you make to those things like bitters and all the things that I have no clue about. I have a specialty of vintage cocktail glasses that we can put things in, but it's going to be a very specific business that's not, no one's going to walk out of there with a bag of Mad Dog, 2020 and drink it on the corner. So it's
Right.
very high end and specific. And we think that Wilmette people in particular will love it.
So, so it was 100% delivery. You're not going to do the cocktail lounge, or did I miss that?
Well, we want to do some tastings now and again, just to have people over that would pay a fee. And we could do a class. Again, I wouldn't imagine it would be more than 10 people, probably 8. It's very small, just to help us make a living. I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I know it's delivery, but it's also takeout. If I call ahead and say I want whatever you're selling, I can swing by and pick it up, or is it 100% you would deliver it?
I guess I'm not opposed to someone who wants to come get it. They got to call first.
And then who do you have delivering it? Who would be the delivery person?
Well, someone over 21, probably me at the beginning, because that's how I did it at Alchemy. I was the only employee for a while.
There will be limitations. There's already restrictions on who can deliver in state law. If that's extended, essentially it has to be someone that's BASIC trained, which is the training that's provided by the state of Illinois on how to check for IDs and fake IDs and things like that. They'll have to, verify there's certain criteria. They'll have to verify the license, that you can only give it to the person that ordered it, and the person has to be over 21 years of age. You can't deal with someone else. So there is already some criteria in the state that has been working during the pandemic.
This probably has no relevance on the case, but you obviously you've done the market research. There's enough demand out there for this from people.
Well, yes, based on very enthusiastic verbal support by everybody who I've told. And I've told a lot of people about it because my store is right there and I serve people out the door. I've been there for 16 years. I know lots of people, and not one person has said, you shouldn't do this. Everyone's like, oh, please, when are you going to open that thing? Please, when are you going to open that thing?
Trustee Barrow, did you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, maybe 2 questions at least right now. So if I walk by, what will I see going on inside the store when it's in operation? It's question number 1. And number 2, will there be entertainment? Will there be music? Will there be anything besides the creation and the consumption of cocktails?
Right. I'm not opposed to food. And the food portion of it is really easy because I have a full kitchen about 200 feet away at my other store. So that would be an easy transfer if we were going to do food for these small parties. I forgot the beginning of that question. Can you see from
beginning was what if I walk by when you're in operation?
Oh, you'll see absolutely nothing but the most beautiful gowns and drapery and European canopies. That's all you'll see.
That's great. Well, that's a terrific idea.
And Luigi takes by appointment only.
Mm-hmm. And if you would, can you speak to you when you speak of having events there? Will those need to be scheduled in advance, or can someone simply show up with a group of friends? And how do you anticipate that will work?
As we see that, you would have to contact us and set up a time and date.
Mm-hmm.
And as we see it, it would not be past, what did we agree on, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
Yeah, because we know it's a residential building and, you know, and it's creating trouble with anybody.
I mean,
Yeah, essentially, oh, sorry. I was
What-
going to say, essentially, it wouldn't be any more noisy than a small dinner party. So what we were kind of envisioning is that people could schedule a tasting that they could come to and taste, you know, different cocktails that are on our menu, and then head off to dinner and Wilmette someplace. But just getting to know what are the different choices that we make so that they could order for future delivery.
So then I take it you would not anticipate providing entertainment, recorded music or actual musicians?
No musicians. It would be way too loud. So it would be, you know, a stereo that is piping out some music.
I have a couple of questions. Let me just, and I wasn't going to go in this order, but what you just said, because I live right around the corner, so I walk by that building all the time. And right above that space is residential, right on the very next floor above.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if there's any, I appreciate you saying it wouldn't go late, because I can imagine, despite best intentions, if you're serving, you know, cocktails and a group is having a great time, it could get louder and louder over the course of the evening. So I think we might want to think about limiting sort of how late that would go, just for the sake of the residents there. But it sounds like you have that in mind already, so I appreciate that very much. Mr. Stein, this is perhaps, I'm getting confused in my head on the order of something that if you could help me with. Because next on our agenda is this discussion about, once the emergency order goes away, the limitations to delivery of cocktails.
Correct.
If we recommend this to the board and the board was to approve this license, and then we don't extend the ability to deliver cocktails under the emergency declaration, how does that work?
So we would create this category of license, and that would be essentially the authorization to deliver cocktails only for this license, only for this category of license. The discussion for the delivery of cocktails and delivery of packaged goods are really for our restaurants and the existing licenses we have, whether we want to expand that. So we could do one, both, or not.
Okay, so if this was to be approved, it essentially would not be affected by any action the board was to take on an extension of the abilities under the emergency declaration.
No, that's absolutely correct. The emergency declaration is actually would allow it right now anyway. That's going to go.
Right,
Emergency
but if it
declaration
expires.
once it expires, if we created this license and this license said that this particular license, you know, is a delivery of cocktails only, it would be allowed under our laws. The
Okay.
complication is if the state does not extend the right to deliver cocktails. And right now, like I said earlier, that the Liquor Control Commission attorney from the state believes it will, but technically it hasn't been done yet. All indications are that the state will extend it, but just not today. It hasn't been done today.
If they don't, does our home rule law supersede that?
No, if they don't, it's the license, liquor licensing is a dual process. It's actually tri-process. It's actually federal, state, and local. You need a license from state and local for sure, just to sell retail. You may need a federal license. They don't. In this case, I don't believe. But if the state says no, then they can't do this.
Okay.
But we have,
So then,
if we say no, they can't do it either. So
so
both
there's no
state,
guarantee based on this, that this, even if we recommended this, that this could happen if the state doesn't do what we expect they're going to do.
that's absolutely correct. There is no guarantee that it'll be allowed.
And I would like to add, please, if I may, that's not much of a concern for us if it does not work out, because I'm also working on expanding the scone operation from the store. And so if it doesn't work for the cocktail delivery thing, and I sure hope it does, it would, like I said, it's an easy transfer to have the scone factory be right there instead of somewhere else.
Okay. So then this license would not allow, let's say in a year, you think it might be good to also have wine or beer. This license would not allow that, correct? This would just be for beer cocktails?
As it's applied for, and as I would draft it now, based upon the application, it would not be allowed for anything other than cocktails crafted on site.
Okay. Okay, so that answers that for me. And then my question would be, does this, it's not so much a concern about what your intentions of this business, which sounds like a lovely business. I think it's a location that it would be lovely. But I do want to understand how this would affect future applications. Who else might come in under this license and want to, what would allow in the village, and are we okay with that? So for example, if we have a nail salon that decides that they would like to start serving cocktails to patrons who come in at 4 o'clock, does this allow for that business?
So first off, each license that we ever give is specific to the licensee. So it doesn't open up like a business license does. I want to have a business and Wilmette, and now you have an unlimited number. We have a very specific finite number, just like we do with the M1 license. You have only 2, we're increasing that to 3. So no one has an absolute right to come in and get a license under our liquor code or under state law either. In this situation, the license will be crafted, or the ordinance will be crafted to keep the limitations specifically to this business. It can be crafted by zoning district, it can be crafted by square footage, it can be crafted by just what can be served there. In fact, no other commercial activity. There's also state law that says, in your scenario under nail salons, you cannot offer alcohol in relation to another commercial activity without a liquor license. So a nail salon right now without a liquor license could not say, if you get your nails done, I'll give you a glass of champagne. That's illegal under state law, not our law, but state law. If a nail salon wanted to get a liquor license, they'd have to go through this process, and I don't think that they would want to spend $2,000 to give away 1 glass of champagne, or whatever it may be. But at the same point, we have the discretion to say no on any application that comes before us.
Okay. So would this be our first license in a certain amount of time for alcohol without food?
Yes, this would actually be one of our, probably the only one that I can think of. So one of the issues that's always come up in the past is that the village of Wilmette has had this no tavern policy. And a tavern is technically, I can walk in, buy a drink, sit down at a bar, buy a drink, and without a restaurant around me, without the service of food around me. We even make, like the Harbor, who is a club license, have some sort of food service. Even the bottle shop and cellars had to have some sort of food service with it, and those are a little different as well, because those are packaged goods stores that are serving tastings. This is a delivery service serving tastings. So it would be very unique in the way that I don't believe it would be crafted that another tavern could come in. If you expand it to beer, wine, and packaged goods that they would get from a distributor, I think I would recommend a denial on that, but that's not what they're applying for.
Just out of curiosity, Mr. Stein, why would you recommend denial of that, I guess?
Because it would be a tavern. So we have a traditional policy of not having a tavern. So if you're buying a packaged good, if I'm buying a bottle of whatever your favorite whiskey is that you can buy at Jewel and just sit down and have a glass of that without any food or restaurant, that's a tavern. And so we've had a history in this, going back when we first allowed liquor in the 70s, to not have tavern licenses. Now that policy can absolutely change at any point based upon the village board and what the policy is. That's been the policy direction of past boards since at least 2009, since I've been here. But that can always change. That can always be said, hey, Jeff, go this way instead of that way. But right now, under our traditional policy of no taverns, that's why I would recommend no packaged goods, no liquor that you buy at a distributor to be sold there. It would have to be the created, crafted cocktails. And that's why I think the limitation is unique, and I think it does address the tavern issue.
Okay, I think that answers most of my questions. Either trustee have additional questions on this?
Let me ask one further question, because Jeff, you've addressed the tavern concern. And let me ask the applicant to speak to another concern which hasn't been addressed so far. But how is it that this doesn't morph into essentially a social club where people simply come to drink?
Well, because we wouldn't allow that. I guess if the rule is you can't do that, then we wouldn't do that.
And I think the fact that we deal with, Blair is going to have basically a listing and a creation of these specialty cocktails that need to be thought out in advance. We're not mixing up like just a Cosmo or whatever, whiskey sour. So it's essentially it's meant to be very bespoke in a way, and that the hours are very limited. So let's say we're just 5 to 8, maybe 4 to 8 if we're counting some delivery times in there. But if you're going to come in for an event, first of all, it has to be reserved in advance, because we don't let just people wander in, because we're not in there behind the bar, just ready to serve up. It would have to be something that would be reserved in advance, like, me and my family or a couple couples want to come in and have some drinks before they head off to the pit and tap. But we wouldn't be even ready for people to just waltz in off the street,
Okay, and so the follow-up question then would be for Mr. Stein. Can all of that become part of an ordinance?
Well, absolutely. We can condition this license or craft this license the way we see fit. I think one of the things that I put in the recommended criteria was, obviously you have to have reservations at least 24 hours in advance, so we'd have to see that, be able to see that reservation book. But also the limitation of we talked about the number of alcohol or the alcoholic beverages that can be served on site are the ones that are crafted there. We could also limit this to 1 day a week. You can limit it to a couple hours a night, 1 day a week. You can limit it to seasonal. So if you're worried about a social club, and I'll disclose, we talked about this a little bit, and we thought of The Sopranos, that's what we can avoid by saying it's just not open 7 days a week to anybody that, to the club members that walk in. It's not a club license. We do have club licenses. This is obviously not one of those. So there should very well be, and I listed, I think, 5. I just thought of a 6th one, is that you cannot bring in your own alcoholic liquor. You have to buy on site. So someone couldn't say, well, can I, while I'm there with my wife or my husband, can I bring a bottle of beer or a bottle of wine? The answer would be no to that. So we can craft that into an ordinance that helps limit it. Again, we can work with the applicant. We can discuss it now. I can discuss offline with the applicant. But I do think there has to be some limitations of days of the week, maybe times of the year, and definitely times of the day. We don't want a 7-day-a-week full business in this capacity, because otherwise it does turn into.
Well, and can the applicant then speak to that very question of days and times of operation?
As we have proposed, we were not going to be open, I believe, Monday and Tuesday, and then we have set between Wednesday and Sunday 4 to 8, but maybe 5 to 8 for deliveries.
And that's for delivery though. But what about is that the same hours you would think for any private event?
Yeah, but not Monday and Tuesday.
Right. Okay. So again, the committee has a concern with Sundays for whatever reason, because it's residential. That may be something we want to address now. If 8 o'clock is too late, I don't know if it is or isn't in the opinion of people, but those are the things that we should address.
Okay.
Has the applicant seen the proposed criteria, Mr. Stein?
The agenda has been sent. I don't know if you've seen.
Okay. So did you all have any of those you'd like to address before we? Are you familiar with the criteria that, besides the ones that Mr. Stein has just mentioned, that limiting the hours, the number of the days per what you just mentioned, the number of people that could attend? You were saying something like might be a cap of, say, 10 people that could attend the event.
Yeah, I think in this scenario, I think that was addressed anyway. I think other village codes would address it, but we would absolutely mirror that in the ordinance itself, whether it's 8 or 10 people. But the size of the space from the fire department's perspective is you can't have more than.
I just want to, we thought, might just make sure the applicants, if they had a concern about any of these, it might be a good time to mention it. That reservations would need to be made 24 hours, a minimum of 24 hours in advance is being proposed. And then obviously, as we talked about, that alcoholic beverages would need to be made on site, would be created and made, packaged on site. And then we should maybe just discuss, are there any times of year or any special holidays or anything that we think should absolutely be restricted, that this would not be allowed on those days for any particular reason? Does the applicant have any days they would throw out there, or do any of the trustees have any days they would want to make sure this is not in operation?
Other than the usual Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, Easter, 4th of July, vacations.
Okay.
Although those days may be big days for your business. I know.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
At Christmas time.
Well,
I was wondering if there's any like holy days where people might, I don't know, we're not going to be loud anyway, but if there are any holy days or anything like that where it would be offensive to people if we were open, I think we'd be open to not operating on those days.
Right.
meaning the tastings.
The tastings, right?
Right. So, I think, I don't know, do either trustees have thought, I'm loath to start listing individual days too much out because, are we going to take into account Jewish holidays and, Ramadan? I just think we could kind of go down there's lots of holidays that probably people have different traditions that they observe, but I guess at some point you trust the people who are running a business to be sensitive to the needs of the community. And I think, if we can't do that, then perhaps we have a whole other conversation. So my thought would be loath to limit it too much on those specific days. I don't know what anyone else's thought is on that.
The operation that's been described seems to be of so little impact that that concern strikes me as a really small one.
Trustee Sullivan, anything you want to add on that?
No, I actually agree with your last statement there. Kate, just we're trusting, and the good news is we know these two, and we know Blair, and I think he's doing the right thing for the community, and will continue to do the right thing. So I do think if you amend it to deliver a Manhattan with the scones, then your sales will really double.
How about a Manhattan scone?
Maybe. I leave that up to you.
I, for one, can't wait to see the dresses in the window. We all have our different interests. I think that'd be really cool. So,
I welcome input on what kind of gowns you enjoy.
And they will be for sale.
They will be.
even more attractive. All right. So, okay.
If the
So,
discussion's wrapping up,
sorry, Mr. Stein.
I was gonna say, if the discussion's wrapping up, I will, the motion on the table is essentially to craft an ordinance, and I use the word craft as a pun here, to draft an ordinance, allowing this business with those limitations that are listed in the memo. And I think what I'll do is I'll draft that. I'll share not only with the committee, but I will share it with the applicant. And before it goes to the village board, we'll all get a consensus, because sometimes, what pans out here onto paper may be a little different than what we so this process is going to be a little bit longer than the M1 process, because that one was really simple and easy. So we'll probably have something for you I'll have something for everybody by early June, and you'll probably have a license hopefully by July or the end of July. Because we're going to have 2 board meetings on this, so it's going to take a little time. This isn't something that's already done. I can just scratch out a number and put in a new number. If that's okay with the applicants, I know we've been waiting a while, but.
Yeah. What it is.
And obviously you have some zoning issues to also deal with part 1 of a 2-part issue. I know you're working through with the village. So.
And once our license is provided, then you'd have to go to the state and get the license from them, but that's usually a little quicker. They may look at you a little weird, but I'll let you deal with the state.
Okay, so at this time, if the trustees don't have anything further, I think we should see if there's any public comment on YouTube.
No public comment, Chair.
Okay, do we have anyone else online? I don't think there's many more people online who would make a statement or wish to make a comment. No. Okay. So then at this time, we're simply taking a vote on the motion to have you move forward with drafting what this would look like, Mr. Stein. Is that correct, for consideration by the full village board?
That's absolutely correct.
And that's the motion on the table. So could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Trustee Barrow.
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan.
Aye.
Chair Giant.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and like I said, I laid out the timeline, so I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move on. You're welcome to stay. We're going to move on to discuss lots of other liquor and other items. You're welcome to stay. So this takes us, I believe, to agenda item 5, which is, so I'll ask for a motion to recommend approval of an ordinance amending the Village Code Chapter 10 Liquor Control. We have a number of issues under this, but we'll need a motion first.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
All right. So, Mr. Stein, back to you on discussion of everything we're considering. Do we want to take these one at a time, or are we sort of considering them? Do you want to present them as a block, or how would you like to do it?
What I think we'll do is I'll present them one at a time. We'll discuss each one, and then that direction, I'll obviously give very clear direction of what we want to do. I think 4 out of the 5 are going to be pretty simple and quick, but it could be longer. But we'll go through all that. I'll get direction, and then that motion is meant to be just a recommendation motion anyway. It's meant to incorporate whatever the discussion pans out. So I'll be able to draft an ordinance and share it back with the chair and the committee before I go to the village board. So the first one is complicated in the sense that we're talking about delivery of alcohol, but we're talking about 2 different types of alcohol, and that's packaged goods. That's the bottle of wine, the glass of beer, or the can of beer, or the bottle of spirits, versus a cocktail, where you open a bottle, mix it with something else, and then seal it again. Right now, the delivery of packaged goods has been amended by the state, and the state has allowed it, and the state has even said home rule units, you really can't regulate this any different. You can't regulate this where you can't just say no delivery. But we still, because of concurrent jurisdiction, we still have some control as long as it's not inconsistent with the act. And the act basically says who can deliver what, meaning what employee, someone that's 21 years of age, and now third parties, Grubhub, DoorDash, are now allowed. They were never allowed. We can't tell somebody no on that. What we can do though is say no delivery for these types of licenses. And I talked to the state about this. So if we allow delivery, we kind of know what that pattern is and what that scheme looks like, and we can't change that. So it's question is, do we want to allow delivery? And my recommendation is we've been doing it. Packaged goods stores, Jewel and CVS have been doing it. They've been doing it through third parties already. They've been doing it. You can go on to Instacart and buy a bottle of bourbon if you wanted. And we've allowed during the emergency deck, you can, Trustee Sullivan, you can. I've already looked. You can go under the emergency declaration, and a restaurant can deliver when they deliver, because of the pandemic, when they deliver whatever food they have, they can deliver essentially beer and wine right now. So the recommendation is because the state's allowing delivery, and I've talked to Chief Murphy about this. We've seen no impact in any kind of quasi-criminal activity. We've seen no increase in underage drinking because it's very regulated, and they know that their liquor license could be in trouble if they sold a 17-year-old.
Do we know sorry, and I might be interrupting, but do you know if this is important to our restaurants? And I mean, they like this option. Yes.
So this is important to the restaurants. So I've heard from numerous restaurants on this, both full restaurants like Valley Lodge and even Backyard Barbecue and other businesses. So they've made this request, and they've been doing it, and they've expressed their thanks and their gratitude during the time we issued the emergency declaration to allow this, and they have stated it's really helped. So when you order your pasta now from somewhere, you can also order the bottle of wine, essentially. And we want to make this permanent. I don't know. We want to make this permanent, but that's the proposal to the committee is to make this a permanent part of our laws, which are already permanent part of state law. And that's for packaged goods. The cocktail one came out in the middle of the pandemic. It was a little late, and we couldn't allow it. We allowed it, but we couldn't let liquor licensees do it because the state didn't allow it at the time. So this was almost a little less than a year ago. It was about June of last year. that the state liquor commission on their own said you can do it, and then the state legislature maybe like 2 weeks later said, okay, let's try this out till June 2nd, 2021. So they gave 1 year of delivery of cocktails, and they put very strict limitations on, you just don't walk with a glass, you know, here's your booze. It's got to be sealed, it's got to be labeled. You got to label the volume of liquor in there, what the liquor is, the proof, where it came from, what the actual drink title is, or what the name of it is. So there's already some regulations on the book that have been followed, that have been followed. And this is more important, I think, to our businesses than even the packaged goods delivery, even though that's important too. I think the cocktails have been really well received in the community, and I know statewide it's been well received. And it's helped, you know, Depot, for example, with the margaritas. You know, that's a big sale point for them, is selling margaritas when you also order takeout or get delivery. Will this slow down because the pandemic's slowing down? Hopefully, this will. But is this something we still want to offer people? I think because we have a little bit of a history here, I think, you know, it makes sense to at least broach the subject. You know, my recommendation would be to do this, but it's not a recommendation based on anything other than our businesses have asked for it, and we have proof that it's been working. I am recommending that we only do this for a limited number of licenses, and that be the essentially A1, B1, C, B1, and C1 and M1 licenses. And those are, if you categorize them, they're all just restaurants, different size restaurants in different locations that serve liquor. That's all they are. But they're all the restaurant ones that are currently serving liquor. They're currently delivering under the emergency pandemic. But they can also, as we talked about earlier, with the M1 license, you could also walk up and say, I ordered my pasta, can I have a bottle or 2 bottles of wine? You can do that now. Anyway, and that's current, and that's been not just because of the pandemic, that's been on the books for at least 10 years when it came with, we used to call them Ravinia baskets. When people would go to the noodle, want to get pasta, and instead of having to go to some other store, could I just take a bottle of wine home? And the answer used to be no until we allowed it. And so that's been well over 10 years. I mean, I want to say probably 15 years that we've allowed that type of use. My recommendation now is because of
really quickly, who is excluded then? What businesses would you not? Is it that like the bottle shop or businesses like who doesn't fall under those categories?
The bottle shop's a packaged goods store, so all packaged goods stores can do this already. You can take it out and then they can deliver. So I would basically it would be the theater, club licenses, you know, basically not restaurants and not business type, open to the public type services. The park district, those would be the excluded businesses. But your Jewel would be included, and your Valley Lodge would be included. So restaurants and packaged.
Michigan Shores be included?
Was that?
Michigan Shores or Westmoreland or a private club?
No, they're private clubs.
So they could no longer do that.
No, they would no longer be able to do that. And I don't think that they've been delivering bottles of wine. Like they're a club license only, so you have to be a member anyway to do it. So I don't believe that they've been delivering bottles of wine to people, but I haven't heard anything. And we could include it.
But would you be able to, but they have been allowing people to pick up
Right.
alcohol.
Right.
So if you exclude them, they would no longer be able to do that?
They would not be allowed under their license anyway. They're allowed only because of the emergency declaration to do delivery, but otherwise they would not be allowed to allow pickup of packaged goods.
I'm just not sure why we'd exclude them.
And by all means, we do not have to. What I did was I looked at the licenses that allow for packaged goods to be taken off site right now anyway, currently.
Yeah.
And if we want to expand that to club licenses, the limitation for them would be to have to be a member of the club,
Right.
which is fine. But we can expand it. I mean, I really don't have any feeling one way or another.
We can move on. Sorry, another trustees may have thoughts later on that. I just wanted to get clarification. Go ahead, sorry.
So, okay, so what, some of the other things that I think, while we can remove the limitations of beer and wine and expand it, and we can remove the amount limitations, I think one of the things that'll keep this in check is currently you cannot buy a bottle of wine to go for a price less than what I get in the store. And we all know that there's a markup to liquor in a restaurant versus going to a Jewel. And that's where I think we should keep that, absolutely keep that, to keep this sort of, let the marketplace regulate this itself. but it also makes sense that I don't want to turn a restaurant into a packaged goods store. So if I want a bottle of wine for $75 because I don't feel like I want to bring it home, you can do that now, but it couldn't be less than that, is what the current regulation is, and I don't believe we should change that regulation. I think it does provide some check. So that's, I mean, that's really it in a nutshell. There's still the same regulations that we've had in place. You have to be 21. You have to be able to check an ID. It has to be someone that's BASA trained making the delivery, and that includes third-party Grubhub or DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever that party is. The last nuance to this is we currently allow growlers to be filled only by brew pubs of the beer that they've manufactured themselves. And you know what? I mean, I'm jumping ahead. We'll go to that one next. So let's focus on the delivery or the takeout of packaged goods and the delivery and takeout of cocktails. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to, of course, answer those.
Well, I think, Jeff, you explained it very well. I appreciate, the bifurcation between the products, or the packaged goods and the cocktails. I think my main issue, and again, it was just more personal, I just felt like delivering made or prepared cocktails on a regular basis, is that the right thing to do? I get the packaged goods, so I don't know if I necessarily have a fundamental concern other than it's more of a personal deal of me calling up and ordering just prepared cocktails. Just that's something fundamental. I just got to get my head around. And the case for us, I think, talked very well about it. Maybe there is a demand. Maybe it is a market. It's something I just don't know. I have not pursued.
And maybe I don't think I said this, and I apologize. But the other condition is it has to be sold with food. I can't just go. I want a gallon of. Unlike Luigi's dress shop, I want a gallon of margaritas. I got to order food with it. So it's incidental and complementary to the sale of food, and that's the way it is currently. I don't know if that helps you or not.
No, it does. Again, it's just and maybe maybe it's just heightened with COVID, and it seems like it's worked well the last year. Maybe it'll taper off as people, as we get this beyond us, and it's not an issue. It hasn't. I don't think it's been an issue, from what I've heard. And maybe it'll remain a non-issue, and it's a nice benefit to our liquor license holders.
If there's any concerns beyond what we needed more of a trial period or more of we can do that too, like the state did, up until 1 year from today's date, and then revisit it is always an option to say, we'll give you this extra thing. I'm not expecting we should charge for it or anything like that. And delivery cocktails, but that's just maybe something to ponder.
No, and I guess it's such a regulated thing anyways, and the police are out there doing their job. So if it becomes a problem, I guess we can always come back to the table.
Yep.
I can't believe I'm the stick in the mud on it, but it's just, I feel like my dad. So, grandfather, but I can get there.
Well, I would simply just jump in and say, I guess I'm a little to the left of Dan on this one, albeit a little bit older than Dan. This has worked very well, and I just don't see any reason why it wouldn't continue to work well. There may be less demand for it in the future, but the marketplace will determine that. We've not seen this abused. If there had been problems, we would have seen those before now. And I think we should go ahead and encourage our businesses and our restaurants here to do what they do well. So I'm entirely in favor of this.
So I will say, I'm sure you all are too, but I'm on the Facebook group Support Wilmette and Kenilworth Shop Salons and Studios, and people post various things they're doing. And very often people do post a meal along with the cocktails that they have gotten from one of our local restaurants, sort of as a complete package. Actually, I see that more than wine or beer, but that they got a margarita or they got a specialty cocktail from Sophia's, or it does seem to be filling a niche, I think, for our residents and our businesses, that people, particularly with cocktails, like to be able to get the take. And again, people may be going back to eating in restaurants, but I know, I do see that posted a lot, people combining their meals with a specialty cocktail from these restaurants.
Yeah, we got some margaritas from Depot Nuevo just
Yeah.
the other night, and very good.
Yeah, so I know we all, I know we all have every interest in supporting our local businesses to the extent that we possibly can, within what makes sense for our village. So I don't know, I want to just mention one thing, Mr. Stein, that Trustee Sullivan said, if we see a problem, the trustees can bring this back for reevaluation at some point, right? If the police department suddenly is saying, we've got a problem here and we've got abuse of this particular ordinance, we could then, without anyone bringing it to us, the trustees could simply say, we need to revisit this ordinance.
Absolutely, we can come back. We would have to give some sort of, attenuation period to say you have 6 months to cease this activity. Most likely, if we see a problem, it would be by a particular licensee as opposed to a global one. We very rarely have underage sales here by a particular, by any of our licensees. We've had a couple in the past and we've issued fines and they straighten up right away. They one mistake. So yeah, we do monitor it. All those citations come through my office, and I'm very cognizant of abuse of liquor. I haven't seen nothing when it comes to delivery or takeout. It's been more kids trying to go in and buy packaged goods. All right, so it sounds like the direction is go ahead on this. One thing that I want to make sure is not confusing on the memo is that for off-site consumption places, Jewel, the regulation, the state regulation is it allows for delivery. We're okay with that too. That's why I wasn't recommending any changes. I mean, they're currently doing it for off-site, not on-site consumption, but delivery of wine by Jewel, CVS through third party. I don't think there's any concern there, but I want to just clarify that.
And this ordinance would be delivery and pickup, right? So you can either have
delivery and take home, but a packaged good is already take home. So think of Jewel. Think of going to Jewel. You already have the takeout, right? That's what you're doing. You're not drinking it on site. The question I'm trying to phrase here is we have no problem with someone from Jewel delivering alcohol through a third party, and I don't think I think the state basically is saying we should allow this. It'd be difficult for us, so just want to clarify that. It was more of a clarification.
And I guess I'm sorry, I meant from a restaurant. This we would be allowing for delivery and pickup from a
restaurant. So they currently have pickup with limitations on beer and wine. The recommendation is to remove those limitations, but to allow takeout and delivery.
Okay. Yep. I'm not sure. I guess I would still throw back out there sorry, Trustee Sullivan, did you want to say something?
Why don't you finish your thought? Because I think I was going to piggyback on what you said earlier.
Was that we maybe want to not limit the licenses. I'm not sure why we would have our private clubs not be able to also offer this to their members which I believe is pickup. I don't believe they do delivery, but not regulating that necessarily. But I do know, I think they currently are allowing pickup of this.
So absolutely, we could expand. So they're not allowed to do pickup outside the emergency declaration, some of these other licenses. I can go through, I can create, this is why you have instead of just a class A, why you have a class A1. The 1 is the add-on for the takeout. So we can create a class J1, a class, we can create the club license 1, which would allow for takeout as well as delivery, just like we were doing for the restaurants. I can absolutely add that into the ordinance. It's not a problem at all. And I would recommend we just charge $100 more like we do for every other license.
Trustee Sullivan, was that where you were going?
Yeah, you had raised a good point. I didn't know that Michigan Shores and Westmoreland were not part of this. So, I mean, I'd be supportive of giving them at least right. If they don't want that, I guess they can turn it down, right? But,
right. So we would, that's what I'm saying. If we said to them, hey, listen, do you want to go from a class D to a D1? It's $100 more. They're going to say the business model makes sense. I'll do it. Or they're going to say, no, we've sold one bottle, so we're not going to do it. So I think by doing it that way, gives them the business aspect of it and gives us the regulatory aspect. Okay. All right. Next item, growlers and crawlers. So state law has changed. This changed at the end of 2019. State law used to be that if I brewed beer, I had a brew pub license, which we have Backyard Barbecue and Depot. I could fill a growler. The growler is a 64 ounce or 128 ounce container or 64 ounce container. That is resealable, it's washed, it's sanitized. only with the beer that I brewed on site. That has been changed. State law has now allowed basically anybody that has a tap to fill a growler or a crowler, which is like a can that's resealed, with whatever beer they have on top, whether that's their backyard barbecue special ale or Miller Lite. And as long as it's on tap, you don't open bottles and pour it in, it has to be on tap. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't allow other businesses to do this. I know that Backyard Barbecue had made a request to expand their tap just beyond what they would brew if they haven't brewed anything yet, but to now go beyond their tap. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't expand this to something like Pit and Tap. The growler and crawler is sealed the same way a bottle of beer is. You can't open it. It's a tamper-proof seal. Once you open it, you can't reclose it. The same liquor laws apply in public, intoxication and public drinking. You have to do it either at the location where there's a license or at a private location like your home or backyard or something. So it's no different, in my opinion, as far as that aspect of the regulation, than buying a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer, which we just talked about. So, it's just I guess it's just the vessel is the difference, and the state law calls this into question, this vessel, or it differentiates it, I should say. So I think we should expand it. But again, there's very strict regulations on this, and it has to be sanitized, it has to be labeled, it has to be sealed, tamper-proof. You can sell your own growler, or someone can bring one in, still has to be sanitized. So there are things that make it not the easiest thing in the world to do. It's a little bit of work to do it, but some of the businesses have asked for it.
So now I could walk into Valley Lodge and if I bring a growler, they sell them, I could get a growler of whatever they have on tap.
If we approve this, yes.
But right now I can only get growlers from Depot and Backyard Barbecue.
And only of what they made on site. So that you can only get the Depot draft beer. You cannot get Miller Lite.
But I don't think you can bring a growler or crowler in, right? Because they have to be sanitized and.
You would have to you bring your own, they have to sanitize it, fill it, and come back and pick it up. That's the.
I think that's your point, right? It's a lot of work because, and I brought in. I mean, it's not a lot of work. I'm not sure, they wash it out, clean it out, and then put a new tap on, and I think try and seal it as best as possible.
Got it. Okay.
Other places, nothing in Wilmette.
Okay. So in theory, though, do those establishments, just out of curiosity, it's not really relevant to this, but do they also recycle those? Will they take them back if you get them from there?
Yeah, it's from my understanding, at least from Backyard Barbecue and Depot, is it's almost like a propane tank, right? When you run out, you come back and you get a new one, and they take that one and sanitize it. So
got it. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions from the trustees on this one?
Does the ordinance now only apply to growlers? Is the growler part of it new?
Yes, the crowler part of it is new, so that's also been addressed in state law. So a crowler is a can. Essentially, think of a 32-ounce can that's resealable, and you need a machine to do it to reseal it. Most places use a growler, which is easier to seal. This is not personal knowledge. I had to do a lot of research on it. So the crowler is new. It's just figured why would we? The state law expanded it. I don't see a reason why we wouldn't.
So a crowler, you can see how little I know about this. A crowler isn't simply a small growler.
No, it is, but it's also a can too. It's like so there's two sizes of growlers, and then there's the crowler, which can be a half of a growler, or it can be a can, like you would see like think of a 32-ounce can, a tall.
Sadly, this part I know about.
Yeah,
if the first one.
If I have more questions, I'll simply ask them of Trustee Sullivan.
In fact, I mean, to recycle some of them. So, I mean, we got one from Depot, and then we were at our place in Michigan, and I took it to whatever that brewer just to get it filled because it's fun to do. There's sort of this, and the guy actually wanted me to leave that one there just because they liked the advertising and they liked whatever Depot said on it. So it's kind of cool, and it's up in the window in northern Michigan. So it's sort of a weird thing that goes on, but there's a whatever, the 64 and I think a 32 bottle, and then there's the cans. Yep. Come on, Peter, you and I will go out. You'll have the cocktails, I'll have the beer.
With a little barbecue. That's right.
Okay, so I think I got the clear direction on that. We're gonna expand our liquor license, licensees on that for all our restaurants that have basically beer on tap. And I guess it's important to know you can only fill it with beer. You can't fill it with bourbon or wine. So, just kind of important to know.
I hate to, I don't want to generally be in the position of advocating for the private clubs, but I do think we probably want to allow this for our private clubs as well.
Sure, absolutely. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that either. All right, so the hard seltzers was also a request from some of our beer and wine. Doing a little research on this, the state has not really caught up with the definition. Other states have. Colorado and California, I believe, have caught up and defined hard seltzers. Hard seltzers are essentially the same alcohol content as beer and wine, but because we say beer and wine and we define those, hard seltzers do not qualify. They qualify more as a spirit. So by creating a definition and then including that in the beer and wine, we do allow for a little bit larger business aspect for some of our beer and wine licensees. I think that's as simple as that. We would define it, I would just kind of look at the California definition, define it by, the alcohol content and alcohol proof and the ingredients and expand beer and wine licenses to include high noon or whatever hard seltzer of the week.
So just to be clear, currently neither the bottle shop nor a restaurant can sell a hard seltzer?
Well, a restaurant that doesn't have just a beer and wine license.
Yeah.
So if you have just a beer and wine license, beer and wine is defined and hard seltzer doesn't fit.
Okay, so hard seltzer would fall under beer and wine now, beer, wine, hard seltzer. And
That's what I'm proposing, yeah.
But right now, hard seltzer is treated as a cocktail essentially.
Yeah, as a spirit, yeah.
Thank you for that. Other questions from the other trustees?
Okay, now the last one. This is the extension of packaged goods hours. This was raised by a village resident at a couple of village board meetings. I've done some limited research on it. What's important to know is this is not coming from any of our businesses. No one has asked for this. No one is, no businesses have requested it. But one thing we did look, I did talk to Chief Murphy, who can't be here today. He's a family issue. I did talk to Chief Murphy, and we did look at the neighboring communities based upon Trustee Barrow's request a couple weeks ago. And it's interesting to note that while Evanston and Skokie go to midnight, Kenilworth, Winnetka, and Glencoe do not. So Kenilworth goes from 10 on weekdays, and then 11 o'clock on Friday to Saturday. Winnetka goes just to 10 o'clock, and Glencoe goes just to 11 o'clock. And Chief Murphy and I believe that there really is no clamoring for this, that we don't recommend doing it at this point. We don't see the need for it. However, if the committee would like us to explore more, there are certain things that I think we need to discuss with the businesses. Is A, do they want it? They may, for a business reason, not. But most importantly, I think is we need to take a little bit of public input from the neighboring residents around some of these things. A little bit of larger undertaking. I'm sorry.
If I call Valley Lodge at 11 o'clock at night and order a hamburger and a 6-pack of beer to be delivered, I can get packaged goods from them. I just can't go into Jewel and get a 6-pack of beer at 11 o'clock at night.
That's correct.
So it's really just Jewel,
CVS, Jewel, Walgreens, and Foremost Liquors.
and Foremost. I don't know. I know I rudely interrupted, but
No, I don't know.
Unless those stores are really advocating for this, I don't see the need to change. But I might be wrong.
Yeah, and I was pretty much done with the public comment being the most important aspect if we go further, or the public input if we go further on this. But again, I don't see the need. I have not received requests for this. And we would just recommend, because of the hours to the north, I don't know that we want to be the next town over that's starting to sell to midnight.
Mr. Barrow, do you have thoughts on this you wanted to share?
Yeah, other than potentially a modest increase, I think a modest increase in sales tax revenue, this doesn't appear to be something that a large number of residents, actually residents other than one resident, and any of our affected businesses have been requesting. And there certainly is the potential for additional issues of just abuse of alcohol behavior that comes from additional hours. So that unless I was unless I thought that there was a demand for this from our residents and that our businesses were supportive of it, I don't really see any real upside for the village or for our residents. So I don't see a very strong reason for changing what we currently do.
I agree with Trustee Barrow. All the points, and plus, I mean, if these stores or the businesses haven't been really asking for it, I mean, who knows? They may have to change their staffing models to do this, and they may not want to do that. It might be a whole different model for them that for limited benefit and more costly. And it might, whereas if people really want that, we do make it available, and it supports our local businesses and with some added food. So I think I'm in favor of just staying the same.
So I guess I'd like to say, well, I stand on the side of trying to be responsive to resident input. It's important that we listen to it. I do think it's important that something like this, resident would like to see something like this addressed, that it would be important to provide perhaps what we're asking for, more information from the people, from our retailers, from other community members. We would need to see, if we would like to consider this, we would need to see perhaps a little more. So the one way would be that, you know, we're asking our staff time, which we recognize to be limited and with lots of other issues, to go and sort of see if there's actually a need for this, and we're then rustling up a need, essentially. Or we're asking if we have a resident who thinks there's a need, perhaps it would be possible to provide a little more information to the committee, indicating that there is, in fact, that the retailers are interested in this, that would allow us to perhaps consider that. So again, I know I'm new to this, but my thought would be it would be helpful to this committee so we could, I guess, we direct staff to go out and spend a lot of time doing this, or do we say you'd be open to considering this, but we need a little more sense we'll need in the community before we're going to try to take up staff time to do this? This is I don't know how the other trustees feel.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I do. You're right. Be responsive to the resident, and Jeff, I would defer. I mean, I agree with Kate. If there's somebody on staff, I don't know if this is something that falls under Lucas, that he could take a poll or do some research. At least we reach just to close the loop and say, listen, we did something with it. I mean, I understand that.
I think that's a very, very good point, Chair, and Trustee Sullivan, is that we could at least poll the businesses and see if they're even interested. Now, of course, you know, they might say yes, but part of that poll might say, we want the option, but we're not going to do it. So maybe we'll craft a few questions, a survey, and then have Lucas discuss this with our packaged goods licensees to see if they're even interested. And if they are, then I'll come back and report to the committee, and then we can go to the next steps of maybe some public input or things like that. So
it might be good just to know if if we get back, the stores don't even want to do it, then that's the end of that issue. But it might be a way of at least, then I do recognize trying to get resident input on this is a much larger endeavor to inform our decision on this.
And
so
it could cause some problems.
We need to do this, so maybe we just sort of start down the path with an initial inquiry to the businesses to say, this has been brought forward. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with the village as we think about this in committee level? Does that make some sense, Trustee?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I will work with Lucas and John Adler to craft questions, and Lucas, as our business liaison, we'll reach out to those licensees and see if this is something that their business model would even entertain, and if they want to do it.
So just to be clear, those affected businesses were not specifically notified of our session this morning.
No, they were not. But I didn't do it, the only thing that I brought to the committee first to get direction as to what we want to do.
Maybe we just take that first step then at this point, and then we consider, because obviously we'd want to hear more from the police chief. There's a lot more steps to this process rather than just saying, yep, we're changing the hours, or no, we're not. But maybe we just start with a brief inquiry and we then decide whether we proceed any further from there. That may help.
If that's I think that's the direction of the committee.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it. Maybe we get, any other questions for me on that, or? Okay, so we can just have a vote on the motion. I have the direction I need. I just need a vote.
Can you call a roll call again on the motion?
Trustee Vero,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Chair Giant.
Aye.
Okay,
All right, so we then go to item 6 on the agenda, which is to ask if there's any new business for discussion.
the village staff has no new business, and just, I think I rushed that one a little bit. There was no public comment.
Oh, yes, I
For
did.
that last one, and there's been no public comment made, or anybody here that would want to make public comment on that. On the last one. So yeah, there's no new business.
Okay. Yes, we should, it was put forward by a resident, be clear that there wasn't anyone who wished to give comment on the last item.
Hey, Jeff, you had mentioned in your email when you set up the meeting that there's a backlog of items that need to come before Judiciary Committee, or did I misread that, or is there a lot more that we still need to?
There's nothing official yet. There will be. There's been 2 inquiries for 2 new liquor licenses, but it's very preliminary. It's or 3. I'm sorry, 3. All 3 are right now are conceptual. So I don't like to bring concepts because they're going to change 12 times. But yes, there will be more Judiciary Committee meetings need to be scheduled this year.
Okay, is there any other new business? Then we move on to agenda item number 7, which is to double check if there is any additional public comment on YouTube.
There is no public comment.
Is there anyone online beside us who would like to make a comment at this time during the public comment section? Don't see anyone. See any? Okay. So that covers off item 7, I believe, which takes us to agenda item 8, which is to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And seconded.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote on that motion, please?
Trustee Farrell,
Aye.
Trustee Sullivan,
Aye.
Chair Giant.